Hello, everybody. Welcome to Countless Vlogcast. I'm your host, Justin Rich. Today, my guest is Maya Galathe. She's a mental health professional. She's talk to us about coping mechanisms, virtual therapy, and a little other how to deal with other mental health issues. Thank you guys for watching. All right. Good evening. How are you?
Hi, I'm good.
So, tell us a little about yourself.
All right, so again, my name is Maya Galathe. Those letters behind my name, LPC, stand for Licensed Professional Counselor. I'm actually pretty newly licensed. I just got official this month. Um, but so I have a master's degree in counselor education, earned that in 2016 from the University of New Orleans. Right after that, went into the field, so working in a university setting. And so I'm actually transitioning out of university into the school system. I'll be starting in the school counseling next week. But I also on weekends do like your typical, like what everybody's kind of used to seeing, like the sitting on the couch type of counseling with somebody, the private practice thing. So I pretty much do a little bit of everything.
All right. Congratulations on that. Congratulations on your start too. So, as a mental health professional, why is it important for you to go to therapy and for you?
So like me as a mental health professional.
For you as like a person, as a professional.
Mhm. Yeah. So first of all, I think everybody needs to go to therapy at some point in their lives. It's called mental health for a reason. Just like you go to doctors for, routine physical checkups, just like you go to dentists for routine things, you don't necessarily have to wait until something's wrong to seek out that help. But at the same time, sometimes that does happen. Some people wait till they have a cavity that's down to the, nerves, and then they have to get a root canal. And I think sometimes the same thing happens with mental health, but a lot of times it doesn't. And that's more of the issue. It's easy for somebody to say, my mouth is hurting, I'm going to go suck it up and go. But a lot of people deal with mental health issues and just continue to suffer in silence without seeking out that help because they just feel like there's such a stigma attached to it. And so I think it's just really important that everybody just at least try it out once. I don't know why people think it's like this big scary thing. It's not. You're just sitting in a room, it's up to you to discuss what you want to discuss. I'm not going to force anyone to say anything they don't want to do, or say anything they don't want to say. So it's important because just as you care for your body, you need to care for your mind routinely.
Okay, great. So, in terms of people that don't go to get help, what happens to them actually? What happens to their like brains and their minds over time if they don't get help and talk this out and they suppress their emotions?
Yeah. I mean, it can manifest itself in a lot of different ways. Like it's different for everyone. I know there's probably people out there who like deal with migraines on a regular basis or deal with like stomach issues on a regular basis and don't even realize that it's probably related to their mental health. Stress kind of shows itself in a lot of different ways. Depression does as well. And a lot of people hear depression, they think it's like this big scary word, and they're like, oh, I don't have that. Um, Depression, it is like an illness that some people deal with for their entire lives. But depression is also something that can kind of come and go. Like, for example, people who maybe have lost their job during everything going on with COVID, and all of a sudden they have lost an appetite, you can't sleep, you find that you're really like irritable and everything is starting to aggravate you. That might just be depression. And some people don't even realize it. And so, again, that's why I say it's important for people to kind of just do therapy as like a check in routine thing because you'll start talking to a therapist and you'll start telling them stuff like, oh, I'm having these physical symptoms, and they can explain to you something you didn't even realize, which is like that's how your mental health suffering can present itself.
Okay, let's talk a little about solutions, like methods for coping and mechanisms for like coping. If you can speak on that a little bit. I know you've been just started, but if you could speak on that a little bit, that'd be great.
All right. Yeah. And I mean, coping mechanisms are, of course, different for everyone. There's a lot of different things that work. Um, For some people, exercise is a big one. Just to get your body moving will help your mind process things a lot better so you don't feel kind of stuck in a rut. There's art therapy, so that might look like drawing or painting. And for the people who are like, well, I don't know how to draw, like I have a coloring book, like I have one right here on this table. And I literally just color.
So is that for like adults too? Like adults do that too?
There's
Okay,
like
that's
actual
cool.
adult coloring books where you can color like cuss words.
That's pretty
Um,
dope.
yeah, so or there might be like there's some like adult ones where it's like sexual like scenes and you'll color that, but that's just like a regular old like Walmart coloring book. So whenever I'm at home and I find myself like getting, what happens a lot is like when people are idle, that's when your brain kind of starts to do its own thing. And so coloring, that's when I pick up my coloring book. Music therapy, so listening to a certain type of music. So for some people that might be like gospel music, for somebody it might be like hard rock, for somebody else it might be, you know, smooth jazz, whatever it is that helps you like mellow out and feel better. Um, Animals are like a good form of therapy. So like if you don't have your own pet, even just going to like, you know, like the adoption, like pet adoption centers will do like pop-up things on the weekends where you can go meet the animals. Like it sounds weird, but even something like that would help with your mental health. Meditation, of course, affirmations, religion. It's just there's a lot of different ways to cope. But I think just in general, kind of the starting point for a lot of people is just basic self-care. Um, and so a lot of people, when you start to feel like these feelings, whether it's stress, whether it's sadness, anger, whatever it is, you kind of feel it coming on. The first thing that happens is that your routine kind of gets thrown off. So like you don't want to talk to people anymore. You don't really want to go out, and you don't sleep. You don't eat right. So just practicing basic self-care. So even on those days where you feel like I just don't want to get out of bed, I just don't want to deal with anything, like forcing yourself to get up and just take a shower and brush your teeth. Just something as simple as that can make a difference in the long run.
Great. So, through your experience and your studies, what issue have you found in the Black community in terms of like mental health issues that haven't been like faced?
Mhm. So one of my personal big research topics, I'm actually presenting at a couple conferences later this year on mental health in the Black communities. Specifically, what I do. So in my field, specifically counselors in Louisiana, that's what I'll speak for because I'm located in Baton Rouge. So a lot of the conferences and things that I attend out here are primarily white. There's just not a lot of Black counselors here, and I'm pretty sure that's can be said for a lot of different places. And so the research I do is it's focused on mental health in Black communities, but it's more so of how people that aren't Black, so like counselors that might be white or might be of like an Asian descent or whatever it is, them learning how to appropriately understand and work with Black people. So that's kind of my research interest. But, you know, in doing that research, what I found, and also just as a Black woman myself, what I found is, you know, of course, a lot of Black people associate mental illness with like spirituality. So there's this thought that, oh, if you go to a counselor, you can't talk to Jesus or vice versa. Or, you know, don't put your business out there. Like don't go tell your business to a stranger as if a counselor's gonna turn around and tell
So
somebody.
speaking on that, so that's like a very common thing in the community to religion and mental health seem like oh stigmas too. You can't bring like both into it too. So would you say like we have to like teach people at during a young age too? Because I know at a certain age you stop like not like think a certain way, but you get stuck in your ways. So can you speak on that a little bit to what like
Mhm,
what age or like how we can change that philosophy?
mhm. I think, you know, younger generations these days are like not afraid to speak up how they have been in the past. Like a lot of like college students and even like high school students, you know, will they're in a place where they feel like they can straight up tell their parents like, hey, these beliefs are outdated, or like maybe we should look at this a different way. So that's a good thing to see. You know, a lot, I hate to say it, but a lot of that thought process from older Black people, but it's just that's how they were raised. So at some point that generational cycle has to break. Like somebody in the family has to be that person to say like, maybe we shouldn't think like this anymore. Like maybe it's time to look at something different, which, you know, it tends to come from like the younger generations. That can be problematic as well, because under 18, they need parental consent to seek out therapy, unless it's in the school. Now, if they go see like their school counselor, that's fine. But if somebody's, for example, trying to go to private practice, they would need like that parental consent. And so, you know, if the parent isn't okay with it, they're not going to sign off on it. And then that child is not getting that help that they need.
Great. So I know you're having a conference. So one of the issues like Black people face every day is race. So can you speak on that a little bit? How we can cope with that too, like being a therapist and like being a Black woman yourself too. How you can like deal with it? Because it's a day-to-day thing, so it's gonna be hard to talk about. But we need to talk about it too. If you could speak a little bit too, how we move forward with that, and how do we just like keep living our lives without any like stresses.
So something that anybody who is listening to this, that I want you to go research in your free time, is something called racial battle fatigue. And so the kind of short of it is just like PTSD. So PTSD is a form of trauma, right? So when we hear PTSD, we always think of like soldiers coming back from like Afghanistan, and they hear a loud noise and they get these flashbacks, and they kind of start to, you know, exhibit some behaviors that aren't normal, or they.
Oops. Froze for a minute.
Kind of, it sends them forward, right? So it's like, as a Black,
you're freezing a little bit.
Can you hear?
I can hear you. Yeah, just like your video is frozen a little bit.
Okay.
Well, we can start over and then we can do a part 2.
Okay. All right.
I'm gonna come back in.
Connection, like my internet. But yeah, so what